Hey everyone and welcome. Since we've been doing a lot of videos on how to play strong lane matchups lately, today we're going to do a guide on how to play a losing lane matchup. In this video, we've got Doublelift playing Kai'Sa Thresh against a Draven Blitz. Yeah, I know, that's a pretty scary lane. Let's break down the matchup real quick. So, Draven is pretty much way stronger at all points of the lane, especially after first item if they're about even by then. Draven also has a slight range advantage, so both short and extended trades should favor him since he'll usually get 2 autos for an auto Q from Kai'Sa. That being said, Kai'Sa should eventually outscale since she's pretty broken at 3 items and has a strong mobility advantage with E and R. So, Kai'Sa's game plan should be to get through the laning phase safely, hopefully even in farm, weather the storm, and maybe try to land some ganks on the Draven while the wave is pushed in to punish his immobility. To execute this, here's our missions. Mission 1, control the wave. This is a super similar concept to what we went over in our last Lucian guide on trading and minion control, and is a topic that's crucial to just about every bot lane matchup. In our last video, our mission was to look for a soft freeze whenever the wave was pushing towards us to try to deny minions, and when the wave would start pushing out, to push super slowly to create trade opportunities. In this lane, the technique is the same, but our objectives are a bit different. We're still going to try to freeze the wave whenever possible, but this time it's to farm super safely without losing health to properly respect the matchup. When the wave unfreezes and starts to push out, we're still going to look to last hit and slow push, but our goal is to get it pushing back to us as safely as possible and to use the tempo advantage we get from crashing a fat minion wave to quickly clear pinks and place vision if possible, instead of using the fat wave to trade. As you can see, we'll be using similar techniques but with different applications. If this was confusing, we'll be going over it throughout the video, so bear with us. Mission 2, trade around range minions. Again, this is a similar concept to our last video, but a bit different in how and why we're doing it. Draven is stronger in pretty much every trade scenario, so we want to avoid heads up trades even if they're an auto Q for a Draven auto. So, if Draven walks up, we'll pretty much always have to walk back behind our range minions. Once we're safely behind our minion line, if he's still walking up, way past his minion line, we can start trading lightly. He'll be taking minion damage and we won't be, which makes up for the trading disadvantage. Again, we'll point this out later in case it's not so clear yet. Alright, let's get into it. So the game starts off pretty normal, with Doublelift clearing melees and Blitz walking into lane with a fresh red buff courtesy of Doublelift's singed jungle. Pretty standard. Then, Blitz lands a nasty hook timed on a minion death to start an all-in. Let's watch what happens. As the fight starts, Doublelift stays calm and doesn't blow heal immediately since Blitz used Ignite early. Usually we'd say to use summoners quickly if you're in danger, but for 1, that mostly applies for mid game, 2, you want to avoid using heal into an Ignite, and 3, he's gonna want to try to save his summoners in a lane as dangerous as this, and that means not blowing both of them in the first minion wave. Instead, he uses his potion immediately and rushes to get behind his range minions, not stopping to auto until he's safely in position. Once he's nice and far back, he sees the enemy Draven extending way far up and starts trading autos safely, stutter stepping back into the zone behind his minions in between autos, and uses heal at the last moment to bait out a kill. Afterwards, he tries to finish the Blitz, but Camille used the Beast jungle path to gank bottom early and picks up the kill. Now, this was a great example of mission 2, playing around our ranged minions. Doublelift didn't bother fighting back until he was safely positioned, and Draven overextended without considering the strength of minion aggro, so he somehow died to a Kai'Sa level 1, despite being way stronger and having a Blitz with red buff. Later, Doublelift eventually returns to lane just in time to watch Thresh get all-in, and ends up only managing to return some damage. The enemy is pretty low here, but Doublelift knows better than to chase into their minion line, again playing around mission 2. He'd rather take the HP trade instead of making Draven's mistake and risking a death here. As he waits for Thresh to return, Doublelift continues to last hit and farm safely behind his range minions. He's comfortable with keeping the wave here since he can potentially free some minions later. On the other hand, Draven is trying to hard push in an attempt to bounce the wave before his back, but Thresh gets back in time to scare Draven off from fully resetting the wave. Once Draven is gone, Doublelift uses a trick we went over in our last Lucian wave control guide to hug the wall and drag the wave up towards his tri-bush. This continues the freeze by keeping the mini wave hugging the wall away from the turret until the next wave arrives. This is a great example of playing to mission 1 and creating opportunities to farm safely. Even as his wave eventually unfreezes and begins to slow push back out, Doublelift continues last hitting to keep the wave in front of his tower as long as possible and to build a second wave. Basically, he wants to prolong the amount of time he's spending on his side of the lane, since that means he's probably farming safely. Again, on the other hand, Draven eventually returns and starts pushing to try to break the freeze and get the wave pushing towards him. While slow pushing, Doublelift eventually decides to go for an auto Q trade on Draven, just to realize Draven is busted and trading is going to be pretty difficult. On this next minion wave, Draven notices the wave is about to slow push towards him, so he shifts gears to last hitting since he wants the wave on his side so he can punish the Kai'Sa, playing to his own version of mission 1. But we see Camille pinging in bot lane that she wants to dive with LeBlanc's mid priority, so Draven shifts back and starts pushing the wave in. Thanks to a great ward from Singed on red buff, they see Camille walk through red and Thresh positions far enough back to lantern Doublelift out. Doublelift waits under tower for as long as possible to bait something out, and Blitz ends up taking the bait like a sucker and dies. Doublelift continues to hug his wall, anticipating Camille, who somehow decides to also follow up and gives up another free kill. Meanwhile, the Draven has been trying to hard shove to bounce the wave this whole time, and managed to overstay and gives up a third free kill. Notice how Doublelift respects the Draven's damage and stays far back until the kill is secured. The only way this goes bad is if he somehow gives Draven a free kill. Once the clown show is over, Doublelift shoves the wave for a bounce before backing, but sees that Blitz returned in time to catch the wave. Interestingly, Doublelift doesn't bother stopping him. Why? Well, he has a lot of gold here and he's pretty low, so he's probably okay with playing it safe and backing sooner rather than later. If he was healthier, and if Draven was dead for a bit longer, maybe he would have tried denying the freeze here. Anyway, as Doublelift returns to the lane, let's take a look at how Draven's controlling the wave from his end. Draven returns to the lane first and starts off by freezing the wave long enough to deny the first minion wave, and eventually slow pushes out by the second minion wave. However, he might have been better off tanking the minions here a bit to keep the freeze going for another wave. It would have ended up slow pushing out eventually anyway, but he could have at least denied a few more minions and stalled the time the wave spent on his side of the lane, which puts pressure on the Kai'Sa to overextend if she wants to farm. Well, Draven still pushes instead, and as the lane starts to push, Doublelift continues to position super safely behind his ranged line, respecting the strength of Draven Blitz, and comfortably allowing the wave to push into his side of the lane. Once the second wave builds up, Doublelift continues to position safely, but starts to auto the minions a bit to thin the wave, which will make freezing in front of his tower a bit easier. He's comfortable taking the 5 ranged minions for a bit to carry the freeze over to the next wave, showing the technique Draven probably should have done earlier and playing to mission 1. As the next wave approaches, Doublelift continues to last hit and farms freely. Anytime where Kai'Sa is evenly farming with the Draven like this is practically a win. Eventually, this wave will start to slow push out. Once the second wave builds up, Doublelift is immediately satisfied with going for a crash and shifts gears directly to hard pushing, again playing to mission 1. Essentially, he wants to minimize the amount of time he's stuck in the middle of the lane slow pushing, so that he minimizes the amount of time he's open to an engage from the enemy lane. Then, he smoothly uses the tempo advantage gained from shoving this wave in to check for pinks in the lane brush and river brush, and then safely paths back around his tri-bush to get back in lane in time for the next wave. Again, during this, Draven's best move in minion control would have probably been to freeze the wave here. Draven Blitz are both full HP, so there's no real pressure from taking a few minions for a bit, and he might have been able to deny a minion or two while Doublelift was checking for pink wards. Even if he denies no minions here, the wave being in front of his tower makes it dangerous for Kai'Sa to farm safely. Instead, the wave slow pushes back out again, and Doublelift is happy to play super safely and wait all the way back near his tower until the wave is in a safer position to free farm again. Now, should Doublelift have tried to freeze the wave here? Maybe, but Thresh was trying to back, so it makes sense to stay under tower and out of range while 1v2, effectively faking it back and prompting the enemy to shove another wave for their own reset. Well, exactly that happened, and Doublelift stays under his tower to catch another wave of safe free farm, and then shoves the following wave in response to Draven's back for some more free farm. He sees Blitz clearing vision in river though, and stays safely in lane instead of pushing up to auto the tower. While Doublelift waits for the wave to push back into him, he notices Singed is nearby looking for a gank, but the enemy lane is playing super passively, indicating that they have a good idea that Singed is nearby. So, instead of wasting time and trying to force the gank on the next minion wave, Doublelift hard shoves with his jungler's presence and gets a good back timing in. This is a great example of how to use your jungler's presence if the enemy lane seems like they sniffed the gank out. If you could use a back timing and your jungler is trying to gank but it seems forced, ping your gold amount in chat and shove the wave for it back. On the other hand, if you don't have to back but the gank is still looking undoable, you can just shove anyway and then go move to secure vision control with your jungler with the tempo advantage you guys gained from shoving. Draven responds properly by hard shoving the wave himself into an immediate back. This will deny Doublelift a chance to freeze. Basically, Draven should be constantly trying to do techniques like this to minimize the time the wave spends on Doublelift's side of the lane. Doublelift gets back in time to catch the wave under tower, but can't set up a freeze for himself this time. Then, Blitzcrank ends up dying in a fight upriver that Doublelift made a quick detour for, so he shifts gears to hard push the wave in. He then zones Draven off tower with Thresh to both deny minions and gain a huge tempo advantage by farming the next incoming wave. Now on the other hand, if his team was behind and his team lost the fight at mid, but the enemy support died, he might have opted to freeze the wave instead and zone the Draven off of CS. But since their team now has a man advantage, it's better to deny the CS off tower and create a tempo advantage by shoving. With great vision placed by Thresh and Camille C in a top lane, Doublelift is clear to steal the blue afterwards. If Thresh didn't place that ward there, this might have been a bit riskier since Doublelift's pathing kinda telegraphed it. Afterwards, he flows right into a dragon take to punish Camille still being on the top side, showing a masterful example of using the huge tempo advantage he gained from pushing those two waves in to take two neutral objectives. Doublelift then smartly takes the long route through his jungle on the way back to bottom, hiding himself on the minimap and giving the illusion that he might have backed after taking the dragon, which prompts Blitz to think he's safe to check the tribush. With Singe coming down river, the enemy bot lane is pretty much screwed here. This is a solid example of why you should always respect the enemy's presence on bot side of the map after a dragon take, and avoid overextending until you see the enemy players return on the minimap. Like before, Doublelift doesn't bother to follow up on the trade at all until he has a frontline and CC to deal with the Draven, and even uses heal early when Draven does manage to close the distance for some autos. This might look excessive, but this is a fantastic example of how you should respect the Draven. Again, the only way the situation and laning phase goes bad is if you let the Draven cash out somehow, and his damage is definitely cheesy enough to make something out of nothing if you slack off. Plus, from where your teammates are positioned here, it's only a matter of time until Draven's gonna get focused, so your job as Kai'Sa should just be to stay healthy and be ready to tag in on the kill when it's safe and secure. Alright, let's recap how Doublelift navigated this laning phase. Doublelift got cheesed by a nasty hook level 1, but recovered smoothly by holding heal until Ignite wore off and rushing behind his minion line before returning damage. After trading kills with Camille, he returns to lane to see his Thresh get wrecked, and avoids making Draven's mistake of chasing past his minions. Instead, he takes the disciplined play and keeps thinning the wave out safely to execute a freeze once Draven backs with his kill money. Once Draven returns to the lane, the enemy tries to set up a dive, but it was telegraphed and spotted by wards, and Doublelift ended up baiting out a few free kills like a master fisherman. When Doublelift returns to lane again, he punishes Draven's slow push by setting up a freeze and manages to safely farm waves in front of his tower for about a minute until the wave starts to slow push back out. Wasting no time, Doublelift immediately shifts gears to hard push his built up mini wave for a tempo advantage, clears a couple bushes for pink wards, and returns to the lane to play defensively and catch another wave of farm safely under tower. And then, when his jungler came for a gank, Doublelift recognized quickly that it'd be impossible and shoved decisively again for another reset advantage. Once the enemy support died during a roam, Doublelift hard shoved once again to zone Draven 1v2 and deny minions, shoved the next wave for a tempo advantage, and then moved immediately after to take blue buff and dragon. Finally, the enemy bot lane messed up assuming Doublelift would be done after all those objectives, and overextended into a double kill, which Doublelift then took tower with. Well, that's it for this video. Hopefully you all learned something about the advantages of controlling waves properly to farm safely, and in Draven's case, the mistakes players make in missing opportunities to control the wave and pressure the enemy laners. Oh, and don't forget to trade around your range minions, especially in a weaker matchup. Thanks for watching, and hope to see you all next time.